Me? Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll just wait for a few of you guys to log in. All right, I'm gonna just wait here for a moment until people log in. I really apologize for that. That's why I wanted to start a little late, because I wanted people to filter in. But give me a moment here. Awesome. Can you guys hear me? Okay, sweet. Yeah, my apologies. It's gonna take a few of these trials to get things up and running. Last week I couldn't connect my live stream that I had already scheduled to my phone, so it was a little bit difficult. And now I had a horizontal slash like landscape issue, and so now I'm finally going here. But yeah, so going forward, so what? Real quick, going forward, I want to do more of these live streams where I can interact a little bit more, but at the same time, I'm trying to do it so that I can have it on a consistent basis. So either monthly I'll be doing this, or on a weekly basis, or bi-weekly basis. But you should see it on Sundays, hopefully, and rarely on Saturdays. So I made a post about that, so you will see that as the Lord leads. But would love to do more of this if possible. So I'm going to set up what is my laptop, and then I have my phone, and so I can see the chat scrolling, and I could monitor what you guys are saying as much as possible, but also give you guys my word. So anyway, I want to give you guys this quick word. The the word that I have on my heart is breakthrough, and so there's no sound. My apologies. Let me see. Can you guys hear me? I want to make sure you guys are able to hear me first. Yes, no? Okay. Some people said they don't have sound. So, again, I want to do this as best as possible, so that I can not only cater to you guys here, but I know a lot more people will be watching this after the fact. So I want to make sure that I can at least have it as it flows as much as possible. So that's why I'll start a little bit later, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So feel free to just chill in the chat or on this, so that I can get people queued up, and then I can go ahead, and then it'll be as smooth as possible, so that there's not this awkward 10-minute long wait, especially for those that are restreaming. Okay. All right. So a lot of people right now are waiting on God, right? So you guys might be waiting on a prayer. You might be waiting on some unanswered, prayer that you guys are waiting on for, let's say, a lot of, hardship, deliverance. You're looking at things from a timing perspective, many things, so personal things. And so God, when he talks about waiting on him, when he talks about getting your heart right with him and many other things, he's waiting, right, for, oftentimes he's not waiting for you, for him to act in a certain way. Oftentimes he's waiting for you to respond in a certain way. And so many people right now, they're in a position where they're looking at life and they're thinking, man, when is God going to answer? When is God going to move? When is God going to do certain things? But what we got to realize is that God oftentimes is waiting on you for your heart condition to be right, for your repentance, for your just condition, and he can answer you as quickly as possible. And I know a lot of people have been asking, when is it that the Lord will move? When is it that the Lord is going to do certain things? But when we are in a position and in a posture to be able to rely on him, to depend on him, to be thankful for in advance for what he's going to do in your life, then he can open that door. And so many people, when they pray, they're not praying in a place for which they're asking, right? But God, when he looks at your situation, he's wanting you to repent. He's wanting you to come before him in a a childlike manner. And a lot of people, because they're not doing this in that way, there's a blockade for which God is wanting to move, to open a door, and to do certain things. And so I want to encourage some people, because right now a lot of people are not in a posture, in a position. I'm not talking about just big things. I'm talking really in your individual life. And many people, because they're focusing their attention on myself, and they're saying, me, Lord, when are you going to act on my behalf? They don't see it from the Lord's perspective. And so for many people, a lot of those that are asking and questioning, when is God going to move in my life, evaluate, look at your life and say, Lord, where is it that I can inspect my heart? Where is it that I can look at what you're doing from your perspective? Because I can't see it oftentimes. Many people, they don't see it from, you know, how God is going to use their life in the way that God wants to lead them. And so many people right now, God is looking for all of you, many of you, to align yourself to His heart before moving forward. So that's what I want to say quickly. Um, okay, let me just go through this. So today I'm going to do a little bit more of a Q&A. Okay, so I know recently I did a bunch of videos on the 7-part series. I still get many comments there, but it's not as I was hoping it would be a little bit more in terms of, I don't even want to say views, but just a lot more people would be able to kind of poke and kind of prod at that. But I haven't been able to get as much of that. All right, so let me just go through this. Did I get the vax? No, I did. I did not get the vax. Okay, and so I'm never gonna get the vax, guys. I believe right now that we're in a season where God is allowing the vaccine and just the course it's taking with, and there's so many countries right now that are going through, mandates, that are going through things that are pushing this agenda. And so I'm not going to get into it in depth here, but my highest thing right now for this vaccine is that I want to trust, I want to have faith in Christ alone, and whatever is going to happen in life, I know that He will protect me. I know that He's here for that case. And so I know a lot of people are struggling between, well, it's going to help, you're selfish, and you got to look at the society at large. But my biggest issue here is that there is this perception of reality, and this perception of reality is, what does this vaccine do? Is there actually a bigger, you know, I guess pandemic, or people call it pandemic, than what people are saying, or what the media and the news is saying, or not? And so this fear, this sense of it's doom and gloom and things like that. That's one area and a movement that I'm combating. A lot of other people are combating, and I want to do that so that not only I'm not trying to come off as disobedient to society, but a lot of us, we are not looking at this from the future perspective as well. So in the future, I always talk about how, with the tribulation, with the globalist movement, with the Antichrist coming and things like that, it's going to set up for that. And so I'm not going to want to contribute to the acceleration of that at this time. And so the vaccine, I see that as, if you, I'm not going to argue here of its efficacy and things like that, but you can clearly see that if you are depending on, the government wants you to depend on the vaccine, the government wants you to, and you can see it with, the vaccine passports. Every year you need to get a booster. Every night, I think Germany has this rule, in addition to their unvaccinated lockdown. Every 9 months you have to get a booster shot, or else your passport or your vaccination thing expires, things like that. So you can see that already, this booster shot, and just the ability for people to say, oh, like, is it effective or not? I have to go get a new thing. You have to constantly refresh and depend on the government. And so that's why there's this movement of, okay, anti-vax, yes, but because of this control, this trust, this perception of reality issue. And so that's all I'm going to say to that. and there's more, but I've touched on it a few times. Okay, so yeah, let me mention this about Trump and the vaccine. Okay, so I know a lot of people are confused about that, but Trump advocates for the vaccine. He always, says to society and just his in speeches that he's the one that he accelerated, he brought the vaccine and warp speed and things like that. So I think there's a lesser of two evils is maybe the phrase, whatever it is. But there's this. I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing called the Great Reset. I don't know if you guys know just this aspect of. People say the 16-year plan. People talk about just what needed to happen in terms of getting people to have a dependence on the central banks and all these different things. So basically, there's this thought that, and I don't even want to say thought, but this plan for which they're going to bring people into government. And now I'm touching on things for which people will say it's conspiracy or whatnot. But there's this plan. People say it's 16 years, but basically because Trump came into office and that was thwarted, people are accelerating. This plan is being accelerated right now in terms of getting people dependent on the whether it's things like the universal basic income, whether it's the monetary system in general, the dollar, and many of this the Federal Reserve System and all that stuff. A lot of people are waking up to this, and so what has happened is that Trump, when he came into office, he thwarted all of that. Obviously, he got us off this, the climate accord and the Paris deal and so many of these other things, right? To remove and to stop the movement that was to globalize and to instill more control over the world. And so again, it's a heavy topic. A lot of people cover it, but basically for Trump, and I'm getting back to the vax here in a second. Trump stopped all this. He's been monitoring and he's been assessing and destabilizing, as in like from the globalist perspective. He's been moving people to not only wake up and to see that, because he clearly calls it out a lot of times. He'll stop, some of the tactics for, the Federal Reserve tactics, the IMF, and those guys that are trying to get people dependent on them. The plan was to crash, the economy, to get, because we're at the end of this like system, right? This system that was set up after getting off the gold standard many decades ago. So we're at the end of the system where the inflation, the value of the dollar has gotten to such a point such that you have to reset this system. And so this great reset is basically this aspect of crashing the economy, getting people to beg essentially as a group for the reset of this kind of Federal Reserve System slash this monetary kind of dependence. And so the plan was either to get people to fight, to get into a war, to do something for which there is this, I guess, this cover story, such that people would see, okay, a lot's going on. There's a war. The war didn't happen when Trump came into office. The this, I guess people call it the pandemic, and again, this is touching on the realm of conspiracy or whatever. But I believe there's validity in this. The man-made virus or whatever you want to call it from Wuhan. All this came up. This was the other sort of backup plan to get people to say, okay, the virus is here. We have to shut down the economy. Everybody needs to lock down, and because of this, the economy is crashing, blah blah blah, and all these different things. And so now, because Trump came, he in early 2020. Obviously, all of us, we lived through this. He came, he brought the vaccine, or he accelerated it, the warp speed, and he countered basically what is this 2, 3, 5, 10 year sort of plan to lock down the world. Because if you couldn't get people, fixed, or if the vaccine and all this stuff couldn't work, then let's get a variant, let's get all these other things. So that's why you see Delta, Omicron, and all this stuff coming up, and that's going to get people to sort of negate the vaccine. And so Trump, when he and again, one thing that is very difficult for people to grasp okay, is that as a president, as a governing authority that's looking at something high level and big picture, right? There's so many moving pieces. So there's not any one answer to fixing something because there's moves and counter moves. And in society, especially with the level of the office of the presidency, there's so many things that you have to counter. And he's sitting there and he knows a lot of different things, right? So there's so many people that treat them as this one issue, this singular thing. Why don't you just tell us the truth? Why is it that, there's no transparency? Why is it that you can't do this? And he has to, in the back of his mind and just his strategy team, he has to understand what the impacts are for society, what it is that will, kind of show his hand for the enemy. So he's fighting not only a war domestically, he's not only fighting a war globally and against the Federal Reserve, or not the Federal Reserve, but just basically the whole banking system, the people that have influence and control, and many other things, right? So these people that are plotting, they're behind the scenes. They're not necessarily saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this, and this is what our plan is." There's an aspect to reconnaissance. I don't know, maybe tapping phone lines and communications to be able to see what this sort of plan is. And there's so many people, like in World War II, when you had the submarines, when you had all the boats, and many of these sort of war tactics. There's secret code. There was Morse code. There was hidden messages, because they would counter and react and then and just counter the counter, right? And so because of this messaging issue and this communication, you don't want to show your hand to the enemy. And so we're living in a society today where it's that much more difficult. It's that much more difficult to say something on the news. It's going to make an impact. That's why you have guys that are white hats, black hats, intentionally throwing people off, things like that. And so this war that I talk about, the information war, there's such a big war going on, not only in the eyes of the public and saying, hey, in the public sphere, this is going to impact people psychologically. This is going to impact people from the perspective of the economy and the COVID, the vaccine, all these different things. And so there are things that the president, that many people are wanting to say and deliver to the public to help and to alleviate, to ease the concerns of people. But this aspect of, okay, it's going to give you, the enemy, this information. It's going to kind of disrupt the strategy and the war and the battle that we're playing here. And so we can't do that. And so that's why I believe even Trump, when he says certain things to counter, like the election fraud, hey, there's this, there's that, he's very carefully saying these things. He endorses people. He's setting up sort of the right people right now, such that, and you could see if you follow his, like, he doesn't have a social media account, but his website, or even on Telegram, people are retweeting his messages. If you follow that, you can see that he's carefully getting people to dig into something when he says something and brings to light, hey, look, this issue, the radical left did this, the Democrats did this, and he named certain people. Those things, when I used to read it, I thought, oh man, like, there he goes again. Like, this is years ago. There he goes again. But when you actually read it, you're like, oh man, is it warranted? Let me actually do some digging to see if there's some issue behind it. And so that's why when he is saying certain things, it's not him just being a loose mouth, and many other people, patriots, whatever you want to call it, they carefully discern how it's going to impact not only the people, us, that are reading it, which I would consider are the primary audience, but those that are his enemy, the guys in the background, all these different people, they are there as well to say, man, why is he saying this? What is he going to do? Because they're trying to figure out what are the good people trying to do? What is the military? What are the different good guys, patriots behind the scenes? What are they going to do? And so there's a bigger war at play than what is being sort of shown in the public eye. So that's why you have all these sort of patriots in the background, all these people that are getting silenced and censored, so they have to move off to other platforms, Rumble and Telegram, BitChute, and private websites and things like that, because the narrative, the information war that's being played out right now, it's so heavy. It's to the point where people don't want to, and you got to ask certain critical questions, right? Like, why hasn't, why, for instance, like the Q movement, why is it that Trump and Q and all these different things aren't, so why hasn't Trump publicly acknowledged Q? Why doesn't some of the quote unquote coincidences of the tweets, or not tweets, the messages, the key drops is what people call it. Why are those things not being tagged to certain events that actually kind of came to pass? They, some of the key drops have clearly shown that in the future this person, this name, this whatever is going to get indicted, or watch for this person, Durham, and many other things. The media is spinning it in such a way where it's like, hey, these guys, they're demonizing them. They're saying, oh, it's QAnon, it's all this different stuff. So there are certain things that they don't want to. I'm saying all this because they don't want to call attention to certain things, such that people would research it, they would be awakened to it, and get curious behind that. And so that's why this tug, pull and push and pull aspect of, okay, let's be very careful who we associate, this with, so that people don't get more awakened. But the problem is it's not working well, right? So those that are very curious and wanting to know why is it that X and XYZ is happening, they're actually doing the research, and they're digging into this, and they're finding out that, okay, there's more behind the scenes. There's the deep state. There's all this agenda pushing. There's more than the first layer, and the first layer is just the media says this, and you take it as is, and you believe it. And so many people are reading, the news, even what they think is the alternative news, like Fox, or not Fox, but just these other ones that are mainstream. But it's like, oh, I guess it has the right spin on it, so maybe I'll trust it. And even in those areas, there's such a, I don't want to say control, but there's also a narrative pushing there. And so the media, the one thing I'll say about the media is that the media, right, is the media, because they're controlled by six oligarchs or whatever that is, or it's being I guess there's when you're a journalist, right, when you're sitting there, a lot of people, they don't realize that when you have a what do you call it, the chief editor, or that person, yes, they have dictation over, can we say yes or no, or could you tweak this and adjust your article in such a way before we publish it. But this top down structure in the pyramid, right, there's this, if your boss's boss's boss, who's higher than you, says, hey, never spin it, or give a flavor of this, just please avoid this, speaking on this topic, then it trickles down to the people below, and naturally those journalists are going to say, okay, we'll ignore that, we're not going to talk about that, right? And that aspect of, it's such a subtle, but it's such a powerful push of getting people to control sort of the narrative. And so this issue, nobody at the chief editor, or the journalist level, is going to say, oh, I'm a globalist, yeah, I'm just supporting the agenda, yep, that's right, or whatever. So they're not going to admit like those things, but it's just a subtle push of, hey, please ignore this, please do this, let's talk about climate change, let's talk about this, XYZ. And so this aspect is being pushed down to the lower sort of levels, at the journalist level. And so that's why this antichrist spirit is what I call it as well. This antichrist spirit of, let's push this agenda of, in the COVID movement, the fear, and right now with the climate change, and just many things. There's a lot of things right now that, if you're controlled by a higher group, they're going to sort of dictate the overall messaging, the propaganda, and all that stuff. So again, I'm simplifying a little bit here, but there's a lot there. That's what the media. Okay, so I don't want to get too off track or too deep. So let me conclude this. Okay, so with regards to the aspect of war, of information war with Trump, with the vaccines, there's let me conclude the lesser of two evils. So Trump could have allowed the vaccine to come, and it's obviously it's a choice, right? So he allowed it to come to be developed. People are taking that, they're trying to spin it and using it for control. So they're throwing out these different things like, hey, there's a variant, there's this, you gotta be dependent on the booster and all this stuff. So people are, and I don't think from the very beginning did anybody realize, okay, the vaccine and the variant and all this stuff, we're going to do it exactly this way. And so I'm talking about from the planning perspective a long time ago. If you want to get into that realm of, man, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they planned all this, like the virus, the COVID, the vaccines and stuff like that. If you want to think of it that way, but I think there was such a, okay, let's have Plan B, Plan Z, Plan D, and because the months went on, we saw certain people develop certain things. You had moves and counter moves. Now we're at a point where, plus minus some degree of I guess planning, right? They were like, okay, we kind of came to Plan C. Plan C, it's been shortened a little bit. The vaccine came out very quickly, and so now let's do this to kind of counter it. And so I think there's a little bit of that behind the scenes. But regardless, all that being said, the vaccine and how Trump has supported it, his thing is he's always said, hey, it's a choice if you want to take it or not. And so he's almost having to, for a lesser of two evils, right? Of either letting the economy go and the shutdown continue its way, or to say, man, we have to give this vaccine. And even in the beginning, he said there's alternative ways. He's pushed hydroxychloroquine. He's pushed all these different things. And again, these are buzzwords that's probably going to get blocked. So even in the chat, guys, if you try to say those words, it's not going to come up because they censor that. So even these things, he's pushed some of these alternative sort of, I don't even want to say alternative, but these other things that are ways and methods for which you could get treatment. And so a lot of that aspect is going on right now too. And so one thing I'll say, guys, for the health industry is that there's a lot of people right now, and it's very sad. There's a lot of people right now that are fighting this aspect of, hey, why are we suppressing, alternative kind of treatments and ways for which, and a lot of people, Joe Rogan and these guys, they have these different remedies of natural, vitamin C, zinc, and just all these therapeutics, right? But there's no question of, hey, can we do studies? Can we see if the dissenting view, especially in the health industry, if it's warranted? And so that's why you have many people pushing for, or at least the media pushing for censorship. They're pushing for, these other sort of weird alt-right or whatever methods, and silencing them and demonizing them, instead of saying, hey, before we go out and make a firm conclusion, let's test these things. But instead they have come out and said, hey, the only way is the vaccine. The only way is this avenue. And so that's why there's a lot of hesitation. It's very suspect, right? So as a rational thinker, you have to think, man, why is that all these different doctors, especially last year when they had this sort of, the doctors come in, they came in front of Congress, or not Congress, in I think at the steps of DC. They had all these live streams, but then they just got taken down. So you had Dr. Gould, and many other doctors come out and they're saying these different things, but then Facebook, YouTube, and all these different places, they're silencing them and saying, hey, no, don't look at the alternative therapeutics. Don't look at this. We want you to look only at the vaccine and stuff like that. So I'm not here to argue, hey, this is true, this is not true, this is the right way, and all that. But because certain legitimate concerns and perspectives are being silenced, it begs the question of, then is there some other agenda or thing at play? Why are you trying so hard to silence certain people that are only wanting to get information and allow truth to come to light? Same thing is happening with the election fraud, right? Like, we're just, a lot of people are just asking questions like, why is it that these affidavits are out? Why is it that these videos are here? Can you explain why is it that these ballots came out from underneath the table, and many other evidences, right? Why is it that this is happening, but they're being silenced? So I'm saying all that because a the mainstream media, the information that's coming out, people that are dissenting and having dissenting views. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on in from an information perspective, but because those thoughts, those concerns are being demonized, they're being written off, they're being given this messaging of, hey, conspiracy theory, you're a weird, hoax guy, you're a alt right or whatever guy, whatever that movement is. So whenever you hear, and this I'll give this sort of advice, and I think many people are mature enough to at least understand this, but whenever somebody comes up and says, "Hey, listen to this. Put your attention here. Like, believe this." And there's such a strong push, coordinated, like almost on the same day. Like, "Hey, the economy went down because of Delta, or this happened because of whatever." There should be some level of skepticism and a healthy sort of doubt to say, okay, like, why is it that they're saying all this and pushing this so strongly, and if it's being pushed that strongly, um, is there some hidden agenda or messaging behind it? What are they trying to get people to move towards? And so, I guess you could say that a lot of people they get duped, right? So media pushes something, people call for action, like, oh, like one thing right now going on, right, is like gun control. And again, I'm opening up a big can of worms from many perspectives. Gun control. People are trying to take away, or not people, but society at large, right? They're trying to take away guns is a message that you can glean from some of the conservatives and many other people. So in Australia and many other countries, they've already surrendered sort of their gun rights. And so in America, how do you take away some of the rights of the people and allow them to be more submissive and suppress them? You take away their guns. And so countering and reversing and going backwards, if you want to take away their guns, you can't just go out and say, hey, give us your guns. It's illegal now. We want to change the law. There's going to be an uproar. So what you do is you trick people and you dupe people to say, hey, dupe people to say, hey, it's getting out of hand. There's, mass shootings. There's all this different stuff, and we want the people themselves to come out and to call out and say, hey, we don't want guns. Like it's so bad. And so, if you think about it from that perspective, then the media is going to demonize, and they're going to take people and say, hey, anybody that's a gun supporter, anybody that's pushing this agenda, and free right to bear arms, then those guys are bad because look, there's mass shootings, there's way more, death and all this stuff. So you call attention to those things and say, hey, look, it's so bad. We have to control, death. We have to control all these, mentally whatever people, and we have to take these guns away. And so you keep pushing that, and then eventually many people will move over and they'll say, yeah, we don't want gun rights. Yeah, you're right. Why is it that we need guns anyway? I guess you're right. We should take them away. And so slowly you kind of indoctrinate people and push that propaganda to get people to be on board with that, as opposed to just coming out and saying, hey, let's take away guns. So again, guns is one issue, but there's many other issues like this for which the media, the higher powers that be, the people with influence, they're not going to just come out and just do things. So because people respond so quickly to the first layer, they're saying, oh yeah, like there's a shooting and we need to have better gun control. There's mass shootings, we need to get rid of assault weapons. There's this. So many people operate in this aspect, as opposed to saying, let's take a step back and say, is there something else, a big picture thing going on? Why is there so many events in sequence that are happening, and then suddenly we're here to have people say, hey, we need the booster, we need the vaccine, or we need the this and that, we need universal basic income, we need this. So over time you're pushing something, and then suddenly you have people that are now screaming for it and saying, "Hey, we need better XYZ rule." And so that's why there's this level of caution you have to have when movements, when messages, especially the media, are pushing. So I'll listen to the media oftentimes only to just get an idea of what are they pushing these days, or what is it that they're saying. And some things might be good journalism. Okay, some things that are not part of the bigger agenda pushing and things like that, it might be good journalism. So certain trend, like I work in the tech industry, so I'll look at something like semiconductor shortages and be like, okay, I guess that's legit. Supply chain concerns, okay, that seems more legit, as opposed to the bigger things of silencing people, demonizing, QAnon, throwing Trump under the bus. You got the Mueller investigation, the Russia hoax, and so many of these things, as opposed to yeah, some of the other news that I look at. But essentially, I'm saying that for the bigger messaging, climate change is a big one right now. Gun control, many of these different things. The push to adopt and take the vaccine. All these things are bigger messages that tie to other movements and other things. So that's why there's a level of skepticism you have to have. So again, I have I have a lot more that I can get into. So someone just said, really now you defend QAnon. So again, there's a lot more you can get into in terms of what is Q, what is QAnon, what are these other movements and things like that, because it's message shaping. So this is exactly the example for which over time they're segregating people and saying, "Hey, this guy is bad, this group is bad," and they're taking sound bites and saying, "See, look, it's untrue or it's unfounded or whatever it is," and they're making it look bad. But if you actually look at the movement, the actual movement itself, not taking some bad apples and some rotten peoples, bringing it to the surface and saying, "See, these guys are, bad people." Instead of doing that, looking at the essence of, are they trying to tie, like, with the Q stuff, like, why is it that these these Q drops, or these posts they call it, from years ago, why is it so synonymous to present day events? Like, why are certain things, and many things have actually, if you want to say it even in a prophetic way, why is it that some of these things have sort of come to pass? And the digging behind it, as opposed to listening to the messaging and saying, "Oh man, like, those Q people, the QAnon people, whatever, they're bad." So anytime the message from the mainstream media is, "Hey, don't look here," then you almost kind of want to say, "Okay, let me look for myself. I don't want to take what you're telling me is as truth, and your opinion of them as the fact, but let me look at it and dig deeper." And so even then, right? So when you look at, I mean, I'll give Q as an example. It's heavily demonized, QAnon, and all that stuff, and they're saying, "Oh, those guys are, whatever." I actually went and wanted to look at the Q posts, like, okay, these, 4chan and all these different like forums, and just saying, okay, what are the actual drops saying? When was it posted? And does it tie to some military intelligence information or leak that is correlated to some present day sort of circumstance? And let me tell you, there's a lot of seeming coincidences, right? So these kind of conclusions you only come to once you actually get into that realm. And I'm not saying, okay, let's everybody here believe in Q, let's believe in this. What I'm saying here is that do your own research, look at it before any propaganda or any article, anything comes out, and people say, "Look here, look there, believe this, believe that." And again, it takes some time too, right? But if you really want to get answers and you want to seek the truth, we can't be looking at something from a 2 article, 3 article perspective and think, okay, we got everything. A lot of people, they look at okay, let's look at Fox, and then let's look at the Wall Street Journal, and then let's look at BBC, something international. Okay, and then we got the full picture. But we're at a point now where you can't just look at an international mainstream article, a right and a left, and then think you have the big picture, right? And that's what I'm talking about with regards to the big push, the people that are controlling big news. So that's why when I look too, I'll look at some of the alternative things, like those that are smaller agencies, even the ones that are on TV now, like OANN, Newsmax, those guys, and then the online only guys like Epic Times and stuff like that, and then the other ones that are very much very I don't know, like naturalnews.com is another one. Those ones are, these guys somehow get information, but they say it more objectively. They say it more in a professional way. They say it from a this is just what it is point of view. Like if you read some things on some of these websites, you'll see sort of not only the flavor, like if it's left leaning or right leaning, but does it sugarcoat anything, or does it show it and tell it in a certain light? And so once you read the same topic from multiple angles, then obviously with the discernment of the Holy Spirit, and um, you looking at obviously scripture and in your prayer life, but also with looking at different perspectives, the mainstream media perspective, the other perspective, with alternative news sites and things like that. When you see it from all those perspectives, then you can more clearly draw a conclusion of, is this a propaganda scheme? Is there all these other things behind it? And you can infer things, and then you can also get the commentary. So there's a lot of people on Telegram, on Rumble, BitChute, and websites, different websites. You can listen to podcasts like I'll listen to like X22, Dave's X22 report and things like that. You can get perspectives, people's perspectives, and then say, okay, this is what their view is on the topic, what the news is. So once the news comes out, like Ghislaine Maxwell, some of the trials, it's one thing to report on it as best as you can, and even the reporting is sometimes bad, right? A lot of the reporting is just cherry picking, sound bites and stuff like that to support a overall message. So even that you can pick up on that. You can say, okay, I want to hear just the objective summary of what happened. And if you can't even do that, then it's hard for me to respect you as an agency. But when I read the article, I also think, okay, two levels deeper. Why is it that you're taking this article and or this news and not just reporting it objectively? Why is it that you have to cherry pick and push a secondary messaging or a tertiary messaging along with the objective facts? And so you can discern that and say, okay, I guess because they're part of the mainstream media, or they're part of this left right leaning, or this whatever agenda, then okay, then this is why they might insert their opinion of, okay, here are the facts, now climate change. And it's like, wait, what? Why did you just add climate change to that? But of course it fits that overall agenda. And so that's why when you're reading articles, yes, you can totally ignore the mainstream media, which is what I recommend, because a lot of people, they're not mature enough, I want to say, okay? And I don't say it in an offensive way. They're not mature enough to take it and do some critical thinking. And so many of the critical thinking involves you looking at it, discerning that higher, more abstract movement, the invisible hand, the agenda, and things like that. So it's not always the agenda. I don't want to say in necessarily a bad way, but it's more that there is something else that they're trying to push, and all that. So even on the alternative and sort of the non-mainstream side, what are they trying to push, right? Oh, they're trying to push truth. They're trying to push and counter the demonistic, marginalizing sort of messaging. They're trying to push, hey, listen to me, and this is the truth. You should be able to discern for it. So I'm saying all that because everybody has sort of a push, whether it's purely objective, whether it's purely just truth telling, whether it's purely, propaganda, whatever it is, there's always something behind it as well. And so when you get a flavor from everybody, and then you're praying and you're looking at the word and you're trying to get your sort of moral compass right, and all these different things, then you can say, okay, so then this is why they're saying these things. This is why there might be this possibility. I'm not saying that you can always get the truth. You can always get the reasoning behind it. But there is this aspect of, okay, I see where they're coming from. Okay, so again, I don't want to say, I mean, I don't want. This is a long-winded way to just go about explaining. I think it was actually good because it shows discerning and interpreting the times, but also news and things like that. So yes, so I'll kind of stop there. All right, so let me go back, everybody, and I was scanning this a little bit. I expected the comments as much. And welcome, hey guys. One thing I welcome is I welcome a lot of opinions, a lot of different things. I know if you guys see the chat, I never really, you know, intrude on it, meaning like block and all that stuff. But the YouTube algorithm and the AI also blocks things too. So be careful as well. I wish that most things are not blocked, with the exception of obviously, curse words, actual bad things, and straight up just bad bullying and things like that. But feel free to give dissenting opinion, and many of you know that. You know that you're free to comment, but also be careful. Don't a lot of so the other thing I'll say about listening to comments and reading that is be careful, right? Be careful even what comments are being said. A lot of people, they have limited discernment and they'll believe anything that the comment section is saying. So people will ask, "Hey, what's Chris's perspective on this?" or whatever. And man, people, there's a lot of liars too, guys. There's a lot of lies. So don't just look at a comment and think, "Oh, okay, this is true because this guy said it." Be careful what you read as well, and if in the comment section you're stumbled by it, please just ignore it and just not look at it. Okay, so let me see. um, Let me go to a topic that might be helpful for others. I'm just scanning this. um, you guys have some questions you guys want to provide or anything? I'm just scrolling up a little bit. And thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for just the prayers as well. Inevitably, I will get trolls. I will get a lot of people. And I did in my first stream kind of address some of the atheists and the guys that have kind of poked at many things that I've said in the past. So I've addressed some of that. So I'm not ignoring. If you guys haven't seen the other videos, definitely go back to the first one, the first live stream. I've addressed a lot of that. So, and don't worry, I'm not here to hide anything. I'm here transparently, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing things. But there's also things that I'm not quite sure of just yet as time plays out. Okay. All right. So, how long has this been going on? Oh, okay. I'll probably wrap it up after a few questions. I don't want to go more than an hour if possible. Last time I did go over an hour. But I think this was at least good. At least it was good to get this out with regards to the media, with regards to the political kind of landscape. Because guys, we're living in a time where, okay, let me also say this. So many people, they're talking about, and I've said this in the series, but a lot of people they have their rapture rug up. They have their sort of the end times kind of thing up, and I respect that you want to be ready. So you always want to be in a posture of being ready for when Christ comes, right? But in those videos, I also mentioned that we have time too, in that I believe next week or next year, Christ is not going to come like that. All right, Christ is not going to come in the sense that if you don't have research, discernment, you don't, read the Bible, you don't see and discern around you, the cop out answer, the sort of you lean back on this. So this is the default position is, okay, then Jesus is coming tomorrow or next week or whatever it is. So that view is getting people to in sort of a false sort of hope way to say, okay, I'm going to give up on life. I'm going to give up on doing ministry. I'm going to give up on whatever it is, because Christ is just going to come soon. So of course you want to be ready. You want to be like the 10 virgins with the lamp, the oil in their lamp being ready. You want to have your oil ready, right? You want to be ready for when Christ is coming, and you have even the perspective of, okay, if God takes my life tomorrow, if I get in an accident, and I mean, we hope not, right? Heaven forbid that's the case. But if God takes you and that's your time, you're ready for that. You want to be saved. You want to be repenting. You want to every morning take your life not for granted. You want to be thankful. You want to go about your day and say, Father, Lord, you would cover me, protect me. If you are going to, I don't want to say this is your prayer, but Lord, for your will be done. But if He happens to take you, that day, then you're ready to receive Him, right? But from the perspective of Christ is coming and rapture rug and all this stuff, roll that up, because many people are just in a time where, again, they're taking what is current modern day issues and applying it to the Bible and kind of, I don't want to say twisting that, but they're just like with World War One, World War Two, and many other times, the Crusades. They really thought, most of those people really thought, oh, maybe not most, but a lot of people, I'm sure, really thought, oh, Christ is coming next week. There's no way. The world is so bad, right? But I believe there's a lot of things that have yet to be done, and we're gonna see inventions. We're gonna see growth, prosperity, things like that before Christ comes again, because he and I've explained this in the other videos, but there's this aspect of showcasing heaven and in the latter times allowing people to see the glory of God before Christ comes again. So you'll see, I guess on earth as it is in heaven, kind of thing. And I'm gonna get a lot of, I've already, and I know I'll get a flack for that, but basically, I believe that there's going to be this aspect of, just like how there's a lot of, I guess, growth, development, prosperity now than ever before. The invention of, technology and, the internet and many things, right? So those things, if we're going to also see that in heaven, then in some form we're going to see that here. And to be able to do that, you will see growth, inventions. You'll see sort of prosperity, and don't get triggered by prosperity like the way people say prosperity gospel. Yes, you don't want to focus on wealth and greed and all this stuff, but God also promises in the Bible, right? He promises to provide for you. He promises to take you out of this, thing if you're suffering and all that stuff. But the problem is people are skewing that, and they're taking that, and they're twisting that, and the devil loves to do that. He loves to take things that are good, holy, righteous, and you'll see in heaven too. Heaven is going to be such a place of prosperity. There's going to be such a place of just wealth and all this different stuff, big mansions and all that. But the problem is, nobody will be in heaven lusting after these things. They're not going to be greedy for it. They're not going to idolize it. They're not going to have all these things. But because on earth, the devil twists these things. He twists your perspective on desiring after something. Marriage is an example. Marriage and having a wife and a husband, it's holy. It's a holy matrimony. But because the devil has gotten in there, he's twisted it and said, hey, adultery, sexual immorality, all these different things. He takes it and makes it appealing outside of marriage and in premarital sex and many other things, and he twists it. So he always twists everything. He twists greed. He twists, wealth. He twists everything that is godly, and he twists it in such a small kind of way that it looks bad. And so everybody has this term for everything. Like, prosperity gospel is one thing, but it's the heart condition and that slight difference that makes it look like it's bad. So I'll also say this about certain channels. I see this a lot. Christian channels, right? Prophets, for example, many ministers, big churches, big teachers. Everybody has harped on, or everybody has gotten some harp, some, I guess, bad mouthing for that aspect. And so this goes along again with certain good things that God has called people to do, but they're twisting it. I saw the other day, I think, a video where somebody was saying like, hey, avoid all these like full prophecy type channels. The problem is that you don't know that God is using certain channels and certain ministries, whether it's a big church, whether it's guys like certain pastors that focus on the gospel only, focus on certain ministries. You don't know if God is using those ministries and allowing them only to focus on that aspect. Okay, a channel is an example, certain things. So you don't know if a channel is God has allowed that channel to only speak in prophecy, to only speak in whatever it is, which is that topic. And so you don't want to speak for the channel and that topic in and of itself. This one video I've watched talked about 3 channels you got to avoid. One of them was like all prophecy channels. The problem with that perspective is that you are taking what you believe is your conclusion of that channel and their motive and applying it to the individual that's receiving it. But the issue is that the individual and the audience that's receiving it, they're in a place where they might be mature enough to receive it, or they might be immature, and yes, it's stumbling them. Like any channel that's all prophecy, because they're not in a place to understand prophecy, they're not in a place to discern what God is doing and using that channel for, to their ability to discern that, they get stumbled. And so you're speaking for people that are saying, hey, avoid this, but really they're not mature enough, or they're not able to sort of comprehend and discern that for themselves. And so Joel Osteen is a good example too. A lot of people, they harp on Joel Osteen. They say, hey, he's a prosperity teacher, he's this and that. But you got to realize that there's some people that focus in on certain ministries, right? Joel Osteen he has a mega church, but he focuses on sort of the baby Christians, right? And so in one sense, it's kind of, I don't want to say sad, but it's good that he's focusing on that, but he doesn't have a lot of depth. But he's also not a false teacher. Okay, let me declare that too. A lot of people, they think, oh, he's some heretic and false teacher and things like that. But you have to remember that people are demonizing and twisting certain things like the prosperity thing, and saying, okay, this guy is that. But some people, right, they have a certain focus on a certain aspect of God's ministry, whether it's prophecy, all prophecy channels, whether it's all these different things. But again, it goes back to the media aspect. They're listening, and again, I'm not here to say, hey, I'm not advocating for certain people or not. My point here is this: there are certain people, you don't fully know their ministry. It happens with me too. A lot of people are like, oh, I watched a couple of his videos and other people's videos about him, and I know who this guy is, and they write me off. So what I'm saying is that not only in your prayer and in your discernment with in the Holy Spirit, you have to be able to look at somebody and say, hey, how is God using them? Is there something else behind that God is convicting them of? Yes, they are human too, and they might make mistakes along the way. They're not perfect, but there's an aspect to their fruit. Obviously, you got to see how it is from their fruit, but you also don't want to take what is, I mentioned the conclusion that people make of understanding how people are receiving it. There's such a battle of not only stereotyping, of looking at one or two videos or one or two things and drawing a conclusion about them, and this is so prevalent across ministers, channels, different sorts of denominations, and all these different things. So that's why, because we have a lack of understanding in not only knowledge and discernment, but because we don't have the time to fully dig deep, whether it's ministers and people, whether it's movements like Q and all these different things, people have to take one or two data points and then draw a conclusion. Oh, okay, the opinion of these 2-3 respectable people is such that I'm going to go with them. And so that's why, whether it's big channels, whether it's people with bigger megaphones or microphones and whatnot, you have to be in a mode of, okay, I don't want to just take their conclusion. I want to be sort of objective and skeptical in a sense, to say, is it true or is it not true? I don't know if this is making sense, but basically I'm saying that there's so much information, there's so many opinions, there's so many people that are drawing conclusions, and the way people go about life is, okay, I want to take this respectable guy and this article and a couple of videos that I've seen about this person, and draw a conclusion about that based on that, as opposed to stepping back and saying, okay, I don't know this guy like myself. Or I don't know this person personally, and I don't want to take the opinions and the judgments of other people and then think that that's the right conclusion. But rather, this this viewpoint, that viewpoint is one perspective, but I'm going to be objective. I'm not going to be judgmental, and I want to look at that and say, okay, if I ever get time, or if the Lord ever reveals to me uh, in a divine way that this person, that channel, this thing is good, is from the Lord or not, I'm gonna wait on that, as opposed to drawing the conclusion and closing off this place, this channel, this minister, whatever it is. And so that happens to me too, guys. I know there's so many people. I know many are following me because you've seen me from the beginning. I know many are following me just because I don't know, you want to see me stumble or whatever it is. Some of the haters. But if you've seen me to date and you've looked at the ministry and all this stuff, there's a lot of people, they draw a conclusion based on, Trump. They're drawing conclusions based on one or two videos, and I always lose followers that way. But for those that are sort of seeing it holistically, the fruit, the ministry that this channel is having, and again, all glory to God. But if you see it from that perspective, then you can see that, okay, there's more to it than a 1-2 issue, more to it than what people are saying and all that. So I'm saying all that because there's a lot of channels, there's a lot of ministries, there's a lot of denominations. I guess I don't even want to say denominations, but individuals that are out there, and yes, there's many that are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're false teachers and false prophets. There's many of those things, but again, in all of their, and I alluded to the person who made this video with the three issues. I think a lot of ministry, a lot of the teaching and stuff that this person is saying is good, but in some instances, you have to be very careful that you don't take everything that they're saying and drawing conclusions, right? So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so again, even for me, guys, I always will say I'm a nobody. I'm growing. You guys see me progressing, and it's a process of sanctification. But there's a lot of people, they're taking one or two things and they're just leaning into that. A lot of people, they're taking one or two things from other pastors, other preachers, other YouTube channels, and they're disregarding them, right? And they're saying, "Oh, I can't get over this." And so because we have this aspect of, we have to judge quickly, we have to draw a conclusion quickly, and we're triggered by, like, we're hurt, or we're disappointed, we're triggered by 1-2 issues, that we can't get over that hump of writing them off completely, canceling them completely without seeing their fruit holistically, without seeing their fruit in, the strengths in a bigger sort of ministry that this person is in, as opposed to drawing on, this guy with his politics and all this stuff, he's bad, so let's just cancel him completely. So when I see, my point is this: when I see a lot of people, their channels, their ministries, when I see them going off and doing work for the Lord, I will see it and say, okay, holistically, are they producing fruit? Are they impacting the kingdom in a positive way? But yes, one or two things, like this person who talked about, ignore all full prophecy channels because they want the attention to themselves. Okay, that's one way you can look at it. There's some maybe prophecy channels that are really focusing in on drawing attention to themselves. I could see that, but there's many other channels that have a calling to say, hey, I want you to prophesy, just keep prophesying. And I believe that God has really truly enabled that channel to just only maybe prophesy, right? So we can't draw that conclusion. So I'm saying, don't take one or two issues and and cancel them completely. I will always see, even, okay, I'll say this, I'm gonna get some flack for this too, but even the mainstream media, right? I think there are some times that the mainstream media, they do a good job in reporting certain things. Maybe just the objective stuff, like things that you don't have to tie anything to an agenda, right? Or a propaganda message. There are some journalists that are really good in the mainstream media, and they can do a good job, but they have to be redeemed, right? So the whole industry has to be redeemed. They have to be, reconciled back to just the truth movement, like objectively reporting the truth. But even in that, I even with the mainstream media, I know I always, demonize them and say, hey, don't listen to them as well. But I'm also doing the same thing of protecting the flock and say, hey, don't listen to them, because I know for the majority of Christians, it's not healthy, it's not good, because you're going to get influenced in a bad way. But even in that aspect, I would say that, okay, if your discernment and your level of being able to take in information is healthy and mature enough, then even with that, you can still watch the mainstream media, but then with the lens and the caution and the discernment to say, okay, they're saying this because of this. I'm not going to take it like fully, but I'm also not going to completely cancel them. Right? I'm not going to completely. So for many people that are at the level of, oh, I've been brainwashed so much, I've got to completely ignore them. Then you can be at that point where you can say, I've just got to ignore them. It's like people that go out and drink, right? There's some people, they struggle with alcohol, and they're like, I just can't be around alcohol, otherwise I'm gonna get stumbled, and that's fine. There's other people, they can go out and they can sit at a bar or a restaurant and they can see other people drinking, and then you can sit there, you could choose to have a beer, or you can choose to be totally abstinent. But for their heart condition, they're not stumbled in that moment. They're not stumbled because they can handle being around beer, and they can say, I can still. So Jesus did that with wine, right? But there's other people, they're maybe alcoholics, they're struggling with that, so they can't even be in the restaurant, and they're totally avoiding the situation. So that is the same with news, with the mainstream media and all this stuff. So if you're at a point where you're like, man, I just can't handle news, I get affected, it's opening a portal for me to receive the bad stuff, then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna ignore it. You're gonna turn the TV off and all that, and that's good. That's where I believe a lot of people might be at. But there's other people where you can watch a couple, and I don't watch long periods of this stuff, but if you're at a point where you can take sound bites and at least process it, your conclusion can just still be in a defensive sort of cautionary measure, and you look at that video and you say, okay, I want to just draw information out of it. I want to see if this what the messaging is, what the propaganda is, whatever it is, or what is it, how is it that they're framing something, and not necessarily demonizing it, but just saying this is how they're framing it. And so you can sit there and then receive that in that way without being stumbled, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm saying all that. Okay, so I'm saying all that because there's a lot of channels, there's a lot of things, and we're stereotyping, we're demonizing, we're canceling these things because of one issue, one thing. But in heaven, and even now, if you're in a place where you can be mature, you can over. I'm not saying you should just allow that to happen, especially if it's bad or consistently bad. You don't want to sit there and just accept it. But what I'm saying is that there are people that, whether they misspeak, or whether they say things as a one-time, one-off thing, you can see that as being okay. I see they have a dissenting opinion, or they don't have a complete understanding of one area, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna write them off completely and never talk to them again. So people do that with me all the time. They get to a point, they watch me, and then there's one video, they're like, okay, that one, last straw. That's a last straw. And then they just unfollow me, and then they'll never listen to me again. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying everyone should listen to me. I'm not saying everyone should force themselves to listen to certain channels or certain views. But again, the problem here is that a lot of people are one trick ponies. They're triggered to cancel so quickly because of those things. And if in heaven, guys, we're going to completely forget about any wrongdoing, any issue that your neighbor has wronged you in. A lot of people, because they can't get over forgiveness, they can't forgive, they can't love people. We're in a world where when you break up with somebody, whatever it is, you get divorced, you just can't talk to them again. And in a way, in an earthly way, it's healthy to do that, right? But in heaven, with everybody that you've broken up with everybody that has wronged you, you will sit there and you can have a meal with them, You can sit there, you can talk to them with hours and hours of just patience and just longevity, because none of that sin, none of that stuff exists, right? None of that thing is there, and so you can have that. Okay, so I'm gonna close this up because I'm going over an hour here. So I guess in a way, guys, I love this live stream because I'm also scanning your comments too, but it can also kind of in a longer way expand on some of my points without it being a shorter video. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna see. I know there's a lot of other questions. I'll try to do this more where if I see a question, I can target that question before. I know people reach out to me and stuff, so maybe I can collect some of these things as well. But I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys. I know I think sometimes I don't know how God the Lord is gonna lead with this, but I'm very happy actually that I did talk about some of these topics because they are current day issues. There's a lot of stuff that that we definitely have to address with regards to how to interpret, how to understand. Okay, I'm just scanning a couple of things. If there's any other big things, my apologies, guys, if I didn't get to a lot of stuff. But all right, so maybe I'll wrap it. Maybe I'll wrap it up with prayer, right? Let's guys. I'm gonna wrap it up with prayer. So it's almost like we did a Q&A slash study, right, of the times and things like that. So, Father, we're just so thankful that you were here, that a lot of the listeners, a lot of the people with questions, a lot of the things that are going on in the world, Father, that we can go through it together. And I know a lot of it is just, me speaking, but I do believe that this is, in a sense, a community. I believe that all these people, Father, the numbers for the views, it's not just a view, but many people, Father, are curious. They're people that are really trying to figure out life. They're trying to figure out what it is that you're doing, what it is that it means to have that relationship with you, to be able to go out and to love on others, to be able to do so many different things, Father. And so, even in this day with this live stream, with all of the stuff going on, Lord, may you be at the center of it. That you would take uh, your your hand and you cover everything, Lord. So as we go out, even today, for me it's the morning. For many others, whenever they're watching it, Lord, that your presence, your spirit would be in the midst of it, Father. That you would be able to take everything, give glory to you, Father, and that for all of us struggling with understanding what's going on, with understanding, the times, that you would give them insight, that you would give them a sense of grace and mercy, love, to be able to go out to not only take media, perspectives, opinions, information, whatever it is, Lord, to be able to properly draw conclusions that are in alignment with your will, in alignment with how you're looking at things, Lord. But that we would go out, that we could grow in it. We won't have this aspect of closing, canceling, and judging people and all these different things, Father. There's many issues, Father, but help us to be more enlightened. Help us, Lord, to be to be sanctified, so that we can mature in our ability to discern, to go about and tackle the world, essentially, Father. So enable us discerning, wise, open ears, to be able to go out and engage in this world, Lord. So we're so thankful for this. May more come out of it. I know even for me, Father, you're using this live stream in sort of a test way to bridge the videos that I do, as well as with engaging in questions in the audience. And you're working this out for me as well, but also for just the wider group. So we're thankful. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, guys. I'm out, guys. And sorry, guys. I know some of you guys think, okay, you haven't gotten to my question. Some of you are like, man, you're just talking for a while. I'm going to see if I can halfway structure this, but also halfway try to monitor and engage in whatever way I can. It's still this, I guess, I don't want to say trial period, but I'm still trying to like figure it out a little bit, guys. So my apologies. It's a long video, but it's also my way to try to bridge that gap, guys. So good night. Love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. And I'll try to give a heads up, okay, about when this will come go out. So I made a post, but look for on my homepage if you see a day or two in advance. Likely I'll do this on Sundays Central Time. I know I'm in Korea, so this is Monday early morning, but in terms of timing, I always will say it in Central Time in the U.S. So look for that. Maybe 5, 6 p.m., maybe 4 p.m. We'll see, depending on the week. It might be bi-weekly, it might be weekly, it might be monthly. So it depends on how I discern this and how the Lord leads. So God bless you guys. Love you guys. And yes, we'll talk to you guys soon.